Hello, my name is Steffany Swedberg, and I have an international case to present. This was a case of Isted versus the Crown Prosecution Service in the United Kingdom. This was actually an appeal case, and the date of the decision was October 16th, 1997. The facts of the case are as follows. The appellant was Mark Isted. He was a keeper of livestock. He had pigs, sheep, geese, and several other animals. His neighbor was the plaintiff, Mrs. Ewan. She had several dogs, and both of their properties were up against each other, and neither one of them had a fence separating the property. The victim in this case was Lily, a crossbreed Labrador Retriever female, intact. Mr. Isted kept several animals on his property, and he stated that Mrs. Ewan had several dogs that would come onto his property and threaten his animals. There was an incident where Lily was caught chasing his geese. Mr. Isted was convicted of violating the Protection of Animals Act of 1911, which is a legislation in the United Kingdom. The Protection of Animals Act of 1911 was the act that the judge used when he made his decision for this case. The Protection of Animals Act of 1911 was put into legislation in the United Kingdom in 1911. The act protects animals from unnecessary harm. This act is similar to the Welfare Acts in the United States and gives rules on the proper and improper treatment of animals. Such examples are tethering dogs, like how you can do it, when you can do it, where you can do it, dog and rooster fighting, housing of outdoor animals, and it even goes as far as how to use animals such as horses for farm work and that kind of thing. Timeline of events. Mr. Isted claimed that he had several disagreements with Ewan over her dogs coming over onto his property, and she claimed that she was not at fault at any time and that her dogs never went onto his property. Mr. Isted reported that he spoke with animal control officers to report Ewan's dogs. At the time, no evidence was found. They supposedly inspected everything, and they couldn't find any proof that her dogs were ever in his yard. Isted reported that at one point he found Lily on his property and fired his shotgun over her head to scare her away. He did not shoot at her, it was just to try to scare her. So on the day of the incident, Isted claims that he came outside and saw Lily on his property baring her teeth and growling at his pigs. She was about a meter or a meter and a half away. He went to his gun cabinet and selected a shotgun, and he came back outside and fired the shotgun at her and shot her in the head. She was peppered all throughout her head and shoulders, and she ran away in pain. Miss Ewan took her to the veterinarian, and they were able to treat her. And the only thing Mr. Isted said was his mistake was not using a larger shotgun instead of using a gun that was used for like small birds and that kind of thing. Luckily, Lily was not mortally wounded, and she survived the attack. In the original court judgment, Isted was convicted of breaking the Animal Protection Act of 1911. The court ruled that Isted made no attempt to try to scare Lily away before he decided to go to drastic measures and get a gun and shoot her. And they couldn't prove that shooting her was necessary. She was far enough away from the pigs that she wasn't actually hurting them, and there was no evidence that she'd actually killed an animal before. However, if Isted had killed her instantly, he would not have been convicted because she would have died without any pain. I think that they assumed she would have died right away, but because he just peppered her, she was in pain, had to go to the veterinarian, had to be treated. Therefore, Isted was fined 300 pounds, and he had to pay costs of 120 pounds. The appeals court could not find enough evidence that Isted needed to shoot Lily. They did find, however, the Damage to Property Act of 1971, which stated that any act is excused if the person was forced to protect his property or another person's property or himself. But again, this could not be proven in this case because, for one, Lily had never hurt any of Ised's animals. She was far enough away from the pig that she wasn't going to actively hurt them at that time. And the appeals court did say that the Animal Protection Act of 1911 was outdated and it needed to be modernized for today's world because we don't really use animals for farm work that much anymore, and they're not used as often as they were in 1911. In conclusion, I think this was a tricky case. I think when I first started reading it, I thought Isted was totally in the wrong, but now I'm not quite so sure. I think in his mind, he was doing the right thing by protecting his property and protecting his animals, and more likely these animals are his livelihood, and if they are hurt, he loses money, he cannot take care of himself. He did try to do the right thing. He went to his neighbor to talk to her first. She seemed to not really take things seriously, so he went to animal control. They did not really take him seriously. They supposedly investigated, but they couldn't prove that the dogs were going into Isted's yard or not. And I don't understand why he didn't try to get more valid proof. But I do think that Isted should have tried to get Lily away from his livestock before resorting to hurting her. However, maybe he was afraid that this, he got after her so many times that this time just wasn't going to work and he had to just do what he had to do. However, it is hard for me that he didn't just intend to hurt her. Like, he wasn't just trying to scare her away. He really wanted to kill her. And he didn't seem remorseful at all, especially since he said he should have used a larger gun. I think this case was lacking true evidence and was pretty vague, so it's hard to say what the correct verdict should have been. The law definitely should be updated for today's world since so many things have changed since 1911 regarding animals and how we use animals, and especially how we view animals. And I personally do not think that he should have been convicted. This, again, I'm not sure how I would handle the situation. I don't think I could ever shoot another animal, and I never want to harm another animal, but if I was protecting my animals, I don't know what I would do. If I was protecting my livelihood, I'm not sure what I would do. I probably maybe wouldn't shoot to kill, but maybe just to like scare the animal a little bit. But I also think that Mrs. Ewan was at fault as well. She should have had her animals under better control. She should have been made to keep them in her property. I don't know what the rules are for that area about fences, but I definitely think a fence would be a good idea. And I do think, though, that if a dog is going after animals and they are being aggressive, that could escalate to becoming aggression for people. So that's something to think about. So again, this case was very tricky, and I'm not sure that they really came up with the right answer, but the laws definitely need to be updated.